This is Lou Dobbs Tonight.
Well, gun owner David Olofson today saying he hopes to be free while his conviction on federal weapons charges is appealed. He was sentenced Tuesday to 2.5 years in prison for owning an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle that he contends simply malfunctioned. Olofson's rifle fired 2 multi-round bursts after he loaned it to a neighbor to use on a local shooting range. This gun isn't supposed to fire multi-burst rounds, and it jammed the 2 times that it did so. But instead of ordering Olofson to repair that rifle, the federal government charged the Army reservist with transferring a machine gun, and he just got hit with a 30-month sentence to prison. Bill Tucker has our report from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
David Olofson showed up for his sentencing in Wisconsin with mom and dad by his side. They watched as Judge Clavert sentenced their son to 2.5 years in prison and 2 years probation for transferring a machine gun. Afterwards, he offered this brief statement.
Definitely disappointed. It went in a direction that we definitely were not expecting. And we hope that the issues will be resolved at a higher level at this point.
The sentence was consistent with what the prosecution wanted, a sentence they argued Olofson deserved. Assistant U.S. Attorney Gregory Honstad noted that Olofson had 2 prior gun charges on his record, and he does, but he doesn't have any gun convictions. Both charges concerned Olofson carrying guns in public. The first incident was at a park. The charge was dismissed. The second was a complaint that he was carrying a gun while trick-or-treating with his children. That complaint resulted in a conviction for disorderly conduct. Olofson's lawyers admitted that he had shown bad judgment, but also noted that the behavior was within the law because in Wisconsin, a person can openly carry a gun. The government also contends that Olofson was the target of an investigation while he served in the Army, noting that Army investigators were concerned about possible security breaches in military computers. The defense replied they had never heard of the investigation and noted that, if true, Mr. Olofson went on to be honorably discharged and then to enlist in the reserves with no objection from the Army. Olofson, through his father, denies ever knowing of any investigation.
He told me just before that is not in his military records, so he does not know where it came from.
According to the prosecutor, there is a letter of administrative reprimand in Olofson's files. We spoke to the Army, and a spokesman told Lou Dobbs Tonight that if an investigation had found anything serious, Olofson would not have been honorably discharged or allowed to enlist in the reserves. The arguments were enough for Judge Clavert, who was outraged by Olofson's behavior. For Olofson's lawyers, the issue is not their client's behavior or bad judgment, but the nature of the offense he is convicted of, transferring a machine gun. They argue the ruling has implication for gun owners all over the country.
As I said in court, somebody who has an AR-15, for example, or some other semi-automatic rifle, they got to worry that if you have some semblance of M16 parts, well, you just may have a machine gun now. And another thing is if you have an accidental misfire, it looks like you might also have a machine gun. And that accidental misfiring will go to things that aren't semi-automatic rifles.
The government does not see any new precedent in the case, issuing this statement, quote, "The jury, based on the court's instructions, found beyond a reasonable doubt that Olofson knew that the firearm was a machine gun when he transferred it. The court's jury instructions on knowledge and the definition of machine gun were statutory definitions which have been in place for more than 20 years. We do not believe this is a new precedent or that legal gun owners have reasons to be concerned." The case is being appealed at the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago.
Now, Olofson's attorneys have appealed to the 7th Circuit, Lou, and asked that their client be allowed to remain free pending the outcome of his appeal. It is the strict definition of machine gun in this case which has gun enthusiasts paying attention. Prior to this ruling, the ATF did acknowledge that certain semi-automatic rifles with M16 parts were legal as long as they did not contain a part known as an autoseer. An autoseer indisputably, Lou, turns that rifle into an automatic gun. But Olofson's rifle did not have an autoseer. So as a result, a lot of gun enthusiasts are now worried that any gun which fires more than one bullet with a single pull of the trigger, even if unintended, is a machine gun, and they're subject to prosecution.
We're talking about 6 rounds of ammunition, 2 bursts, 2 rounds, which in the first burst went clear, a third jam. 2 rounds went clear, the third jammed, and this man goes to jail for 30 years. Is the U.S. attorney and the federal judge there are they out of their minds?
Well, you know, I've spoken with the U.S. attorney today, spoken with his office. I mean, they clearly believe that they're doing the right thing, Lou, and you know, and that's all I can say. It does seem extreme that this guy, a veteran and a reservist, would end up in this position.
Yeah. Well, it's also peculiar that ATF would go after him. I said 30 years, I mean 30 months. I mean, this is extraordinary. ATF had said that they're going to deal with only violent crimes, you know, like narco-terrorists and so forth. And they go after David Olofson, taking care of his 3 kids, a man who's been serving in the U.S. Army Reserves. This is, and by the way, the local paper there reporting that they had testified that he knew it was an automatic weapon. That's not true at all. We went through, I thought I was imagining things. We went through the transcript today. In point of fact, that is not what he said at all.
No, he acknowledged to the ATF and to the prosecutors that he knows what a machine gun is, but to my reading of any of the transcripts, he never said he knew this gun, this rifle, was in fact a machine gun. It's been his contention all along that it was a broken gun. That it
well,
was
this smells to high heaven.
To be fixed.
It smells to high heaven. I want this thing absolutely continued to, and I want your investigation, if you will, to continue. I want to know exactly what's going on there with Mr. Olofson and why these forces, these powers have decided to come down so hard on an individual, American citizen who served his nation and done so with an honorable discharge. And I want to find out why they're playing such games with the media as well, because this is absolutely outrageous. The people of Wisconsin putting up with this nonsense from their federal court bench and from their local officials there, I mean, it's crazy. Bill, thank you very much. Bill Tucker.
You're welcome.